Hi everyone, I am Sumant. In this video, let's discuss another important data structure, that is data frame. So in our previous video, we have already discussed about series. So if you didn't watch that video, I will give you the link for that in the description. So if we just come to this data frame, so this data frame is a two-dimensional data structure where the data is in the form of tabular form, right? That's how this data frame will be. And we have discussed a series, right? So series is nothing but it's an one-dimensional array, but here this data frame is a two-dimensional data structure with labeled axis, right? So that is called as data frame. First, let's understand how to create the data frame. So before creating the data frame, you have to first import pandas. I'm just importing pandas as PD, and numpy. I'm just importing both pandas and numpy. So before going to this data frame, let's understand what's the reason for using data frame. So you can see here the Excel sheet, right? So here we have the columns like A, B, C, D and E, right? So here you can see I have like 5 columns where these 4 are the input features and this E is the output feature, right? So here we can see the entire data. I have nearly some 151 rows, right, and 5 columns in this data. So this is the two-dimensional data, right? So this is the two-dimensional data where we have the rows as well as columns. So if you want to perform data analysis on this data, so we can just perform, right? We can just perform using the Excel sheet also. But so if the data is very small, then you can just use this Excel sheet to perform some data analysis. But for example, let's say if you have some huge data, then you can't do every analysis using this Excel sheet, right? So that's the reason why we used to go for this pandas data frame. So if you want to, so this is the Excel sheet, right? So if you want to create data frame from this Excel sheet, I'll just give data equal to, I'm just reading, right? I'm just using pd.read_csv, right? So this is the CSV file, which is like comma separated file. So I'm just reading that file. So if you want to read that file, I'm just using the function read_csv. So similarly, so here you can see we can able to read the Excel file, CSV and HTML, JSON, pickle file. We can just read a lot of files also. So I will just create an so in this video, I'm not going depth into that how to read all the files. So I will just create another video for reading, like complete video on how to read every file. So for now, I'm just using this read_csv. So I'm just giving iris.csv. So you can see I just read the file, this iris.csv. Now if I just try to print this data, so you can see now it converted this CSV file. You can see the file here, right? The CSV file to the data frame. So you can see it's like a table structure, right? We have the rows and columns. Now if I just try to give the type of data, you can see it's given the data frame. So this is the data frame. So this is one way you can just create the data frame using the, so if you have any Excel sheet or if you have like any CSV file, you can just use this .csv, like you can just use this read_csv to create that CSV file to data frame. And even there are some other methods through which you can just create a data frame. So even you can just create a data frame using a list, even using dictionary. So I'll just give one example through which you can just create a data frame. So I'm just giving iris is equal to, and here I'm just creating a dictionary. So here you can see I just created a dictionary with the values like the keys of the column names which we have here, and you can see, and also I just given the list the values for each column as a list of values. I just given as a list. So here you can see I just given the 5 point the values which we have here in the form of this list. In the form of list I have just given. So I will just try to run this, and now I will just try to create this dictionary to data frame. So for that I will just use the pandas library. We have this data frame. So I'm just using pd.DataFrame off, and I'm just giving iris. So you can see here, by using this data frame, it just created this dictionary to data frame, right? You can see, so it looks similar to that of this, right? So I've just given 3 examples. I've just taken 3 rows as an example to show you like how to create this data frame in using this dictionary, right? Even you can just create data frame using list also, right? And also there are some other methods through which you can just create, and even for that I will just create a separate video of how to create data frame, like what are all the different ways you can just create a data frame, right? So that's how we can just create a data frame. Now let's understand, by creating this data frame, what are all operations we can just perform this using this data frame, right? So that's the main reason, right? We have to perform data analysis. So for that, I'm just using data.tab here. So when I just press tab, you can see all the available functions for this data frame, right? So in this video we will discuss some basic operations and also some important operations, right? In order to know you for the, if you want to get the top 5 rows, right? So you can see, so these are the rows, right? These are the rows and these are the columns. So we have like 5 columns and 150 rows, right? You can see here. And if you want to read top 5 rows, so you can just use data.head off. So when I just give data.head off, you can see I just got only top 5 rows. So if you want like some top 2 rows or top 10 rows, you can just mention that. So when I just mention data.head of 10, you can just see I got top 10 rows. So that's how you can just extract some sample of data using this head of function. And similarly, if you want to extract a bottom 5 rows, so you can just use data.tail off, right? So you can see these are the bottom 5 rows which we have in the data. So similarly, you can just give some 3 rows bottom. If you want bottom 3 rows, you can just mention that. So you can see we got like bottom 3 rows. So that's how you can just extract the data using the data frame. And if you want to know like what is the shape of this data, like how many rows is present in the data, like how many columns in the data, so for that you can just give data.shape. So you can just see we got the tuple with 2 values. So this is the 150 is the like first value which we get. This is the row number of rows and this is the number of columns. So you can see we have like 150 rows and 5 columns. So that's what we got here. And so if you want to know the complete description of the data, you can just use data.describe of. So you can see we got the, so if you just use this describe of function, so you can just see we got the complete description of the data, right? Like what is the count and what is the mean of the particular column and what is the standard deviation and what is the minimum value. So you can see we got everything about this data. And so this is how you can just use this describe of to know the complete description of the data. And so if you want to know the list of columns which you have in your data, you can just give data dot. So you can see we got the columns, right? You can just see we got the list of columns, all the available columns in our data, like data set, like sepal length, sepal width, petal length, petal width and species. So you can see that. And if you want to know the info, like information of your data, you can use data.info off. So when you just give data.info off, you can just see it will just give for the particular column is there any null values or not. So you can see there is no null values in our data, so it given a non-null. So and also it will just give what is the data type of that particular column. So you can see the sepal length is of float data type. And similarly you can just see the species which is of object, right? Which means it is like a string data type. So that's how you can just use this data.info of. And also if you want to know is there any null values in your data, you can just use data.is null of. So you can see it will just give whether like it will just return true or false, right? If there is any null value, it will just return true, or else it will just return false. So if you want to know the count, so you can just give this null of dot sum of, right? So if you just print enter, you can see it. So it will just give you the null values present in your data. Like you can see it just given 0, so it means we don't have any null values, right? So for example, let's say here I will just create a null value. So instead of this 5.1, I will just use np.nan, and here I just create a data frame. Now I will just use this, right? If I just print iris, so you can see we have a null value in the chapel length column. So now if I just give this null of dot sum of, you can see it's just given this 1 here, since there is a null value present in the data iris. Since there is a null value present in this data, so that's the reason why it given 1 here, chapel in chapel length. So if you want to remove the null values, so here we have like some functions to do that. So I just use iris dot. So you can see here we have like drop duplicates, drop level, and drop NA. So what this drop will do means, if you want to drop a particular row or particular column, so you can just mention by using this drop off, you can just mention whatever the row or whatever the column you want, you can just mention that. It will just remove the entire column, right? So if I just give 0 here, it means it will just take the first row, right? This is the row number 0. So if I just give data drop of 0, you can see it just removed that, it just dropped that row, right? So similarly, you can just, instead of mentioning that, you can just give iris dot drop NA off, right? You can just use iris dot drop NA off. It will automatically remove the entire rows which contain null values. So we don't need to give manually, we don't need to give which row you have to remove for this drop NA off. So if I just give enter, you can see even now it just removed the entire row which has null value. Or let's say if you want, instead of removing that, if you want to fill some value in this, so you can just use iris dot fill NA off. I'll just give 0 here. So if you just give enter, so you can see here it just removed this, instead of this nan value, it just filled 0 which we have given here. So that's how you can just handle the null values inside a data frame, right? So these are all operations you can just use. You can just, after creating this data frame, these are all operations you can just perform. So similarly, even there are other functions, even there are some other operations, like if you want to access some particular data, so how we have done in series, you can just mention data of. So here you can see the data. Now if you want to extract some, like if you want to extract some particular data inside this, I just want to extract all the rows which contain the species name as iris setosa, right? I just want to extract that data. So for that I can just copy that, and here inside this I will just mention data of, I'm just giving the column name, right? Species. You can see here I just similarly how you extract the data using the indexes, I'm just giving that, right? I'm just giving the same thing. The data, like what it will do means, it will just go inside this data and it will just extract the function, like what the operation which we have mentioned here it will do means, whichever row has the species name is equal to iris setosa, it will just return the true, right? We're just using the equal to operator. So what it will do means, it will just return true. So it will just return all the rows which has true, right? So that's what it will do. So if you just give enter, you can see we just got some 50 rows, right? We just got some 50 rows which contains this iris setosa. So that's how you can just extract some particular data. So similarly, you can just perform whatever idea you have in your mind, like to perform data analysis, you can just do that. So if you want to access some particular row, you can just give data, like how we can access the list using the indexes, right? So similarly, you can just mention these are the indexes, right? These are the index values. So 0, 1, 2, 3. So you can just mention that dot ilog of, right? And I will just mention 0. So you can see it just given the data of the first row. Similarly, you can just access, if you want to access some particular column, so you can just give data of, so I will just give the sepal length, right? So you can just see I can able to access the sepal length data. So this is how you can just extract the data and perform some basic analysis. So you can see even there are some other operations, like if you want to convert, right? So if you want to like after making some data analysis, after modifying the data, if you want to save that data to some other files like CSV file or an Excel file or whatever file you want. So if you want to do that, even you can just do by using that two underscore files, right? Two underscore latex or HTML, two underscore HDF, Excel, dictionary, CSV. You can just do that, right? And if you want to extract some random sample of data from the existing data, right, you can just use data.sampleof. So you can see it just extracted one particular sample from the entire data. So if you want some five sample, like random like 5 sampling data, you can just give 5, right? So it will just give some random samples of data. So similarly, even there are some other operations, right? You can see, right? You can just, so in this video I just given the basic overview of this data frame and how can you convert this normal CSV file or normal Excel file to a data frame, and also I just shown you the some basic operations which we mostly perform using this data frame. And even I said you, right, even there are some other functions. I'm not discussing all those things. So that's it for this video. I hope you understood this video. So if you understood the video, like the video, and if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.